Good evening and welcome to our special council meeting of Monday, June the 1st, 2020. I have with me Councillor Sidney Ben-Isri, Councillor Oren Sabag, Councillor Stephen Erdely, Councillor Mike Cohen, Councillor David Torgman, Councillor Mitch Kajawski, Councillor Dita Burku. We have the Associate City Manager, Nadia DeFuria. We have the City Manager, Tanya Abramovich. We have our Co-City Manager, Jonathan Schechter, and our City Clerk, Jason Prevost. Before we start the meeting, we'll take a moment of silence for all those who have passed, including, I believe it's now 23 people at Maimonides in our city. And we will take a moment to think and pray for those who are presently infected and hope for their recovery. So we are trying something new today. We have multiple ways of doing question period. First, we were accepting questions up until 5 o'clock tonight, and maybe even later than that. And I have some that will be read out by the city clerk and in their entirety, providing their name and all the wording exactly as written. And then I will respond. There's also the ability during the question period to write your questions on the feed on YouTube. However, I don't see YouTube and I don't see the comments on YouTube. So I don't really know what's going on there. So it's going to be up to Darrell Levine, our communications director, to send me those questions. And they will be read in their entirety by Jason Prevost, our city clerk, and then I will respond to them. At the end of question period, comments will be turned off. There was an error one meeting a few meetings ago where comments were not turned off. And during a public council meeting, since the chair cannot even see what's going on in the comment screen, there is no way for me to be able to respond, and it's totally unmanageable. So we run a council meeting like all council meetings, and now we found a way to do it live on video, just like as if we were in person in the room, with a chance for people to ask their questions live if they wish, and they didn't have a chance to send them in by email, and then to run the meeting without people shouting out from the audience, but and putting stuff up that I wouldn't even know what it was because I don't see it. So yes, so we're going to run it just like a real council meeting, and I'm glad you're with me today. And if you haven't gotten the chance to send in your questions, the sooner you do, the more likely Darrell Levine, our communications director, is going to get them to Jason Prevost to read them for me to answer. So we will start question period, and I'm going to send it off to Jason Prevost to read the first question.
Okay, so our first question is from Mr. Mark Mendelson. My question concerns the reopening of swimming pools in residential buildings. When and why not now? In our building at 6875 Norwalk, we have a two-person rule in elevators during this lockdown period, which everyone seems to follow. This exact rule could to swimming pools where the water is chlorinated and heated and a virus cannot live. A huge sign stating no more than 2 swimmers at a time would serve as an appropriate notice to the residents. As a former paratrooper with damaged knees because of my service, I seriously need 4 to 5 times a week to go do laps in the swimming pool, and I'm unable to walk distances. That's the end of the question.
Thank you, Maitre Prevost. So based on the information that we have so far, we are uncertain of the manner in which private swimming pools will be allowed to be opened. We at the City of Côte Saint-Luc are planning to open up our public swimming pool by the end of the month, probably at the same time that the City of Montreal opens up their swimming pools. And we're going to be taking all precautions. In an outdoor pool, it's easier. In an indoor pool, from what we see from the Institut National de la Santé Publique du Québec, what they've produced in their document so far, which would be some of the requirements we believe that would be required in order to open an indoor swimming pool in a condo or an apartment, would include physical distancing, hand hygiene, limiting the number of people who can use the pool at the same time, having a reservation system, and perhaps a staff person at the entrance of the pool at all times during opening hours to control the number of users who enter. That being said, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the government requests and requires. Maitre Prévost, the next question, please.
Okay, the second question is from Toby Schulman. I still do not understand why people will not be required to wear masks in all common areas of buildings and condos. I was sitting in the entryway of my building when 4 people came in. 1 was wearing a mask, but 3 were not. They waited nearby for the superintendent. The same thing happened yesterday in the common laundry room. I was only wearing a mask in that small room. It seems to me, from what I have read on Facebook, most residents want masks worn in buildings and condo common areas, not just others. I think the bylaw should be stronger on that point.
Thank you, Ms. Schulman. Our bylaw, and I did a robocall yesterday, I hope you all received it, which tried to clarify to the best of my ability what is going to be obligatory, mandatory, and what's going to be recommended. And the reason why certain things are mandatory and others are recommended is because we're a municipality. And what we have available to us is a urban planning inspector who is able to go by condos and apartment buildings and ensure that hand sanitizers have been put up and signage has been put up. We don't have a police force or public security force able to enforce individuals wearing of masks, although it's highly recommended and will be strongly promoted. We met with doctors tonight who spoke to us all about, they're called Doctors for Masks in Canada, and they provide a lot of information about the benefits of wearing masks. And we're going to have a COVID-19 town hall meeting where we're going to have them as our guest speakers, and they'll be able to provide more information and educate the population on the importance of wearing masks. And they do believe that we are making history and that other municipalities, other jurisdictions will follow, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to go out and enjoy our lives and be deconfined in a happy way that's long lasting, and that there won't be a big spread of the virus and we won't have to go back indoors in a lockdown. So we hope that we are making some history here, and that Mr. Legault and others are listening. And in Ottawa, we hear on the 15th, they are going to be making masks mandatory on public transit. We're requesting that as well. We're hoping Mr. Legault does that and follows us in many other areas, imposing the use of masks, because I mean, he has the whole police force and the whole enforcement power behind him. Maitre Prévost, the next question, please.
Yes, so the next question is from Hershey and Shani Felig. If feasible, I would like to have the mayor and council acknowledge the crisis occurring now at the Maimonides Hotel situated in Côte Saint-Luc, and consider and examine what jurisdiction and authority the city has to interfere and take charge to remedy the situation.
Yes, the Maimonides Hospital. Sorry, I know you made a little mistake on the wording there. It's certainly not a hotel these days. Maimonides Hospital is a very, very bad situation right now, with 23 deaths and 73 or 74 people presently infected as positive. We've been working tirelessly with Dr. Rosenberg and his communications person, Mr. Goldblum, speaking all the time about what can be done to improve the situation. Our Member of Parliament, Anthony Housefather, our Member of the National Assembly, David Birnbaum, City Councilor, Dita Burku, are extremely active. Dita has a mother there. Anthony has a father there. It's very close to our hearts. This institution is in need of great support. We've asked at all levels. I know both Anthony and David Birnbaum have been asking for the Army to come in to assist. The way in which it's being managed now is what is thought to be best by the medical experts, but we know they're short-staffed. We know they're short-staffed, and we need to find ways to bring in more staff. With the numbers coming out, I'm sure they're going to be public now. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the Army into Maimonides. But we are working on this file every day, and we feel for every member of every family member and for all the residents that are there. And together, we're going to do the best to hopefully turn that situation around. So if you have any further ideas or questions, feel free to contact me either by email or phone anytime. Thank you. Maitre Prévost, the next question.
Yes, the next question is from Sarah Ben Simon. On March 31st, 2020, your office participated in the closing of the Mikvah on Kildare Avenue. At the time, the ambiguity was as to whether or not the Mikvah was a safe space was in question due to the public outcry from people that do not use the Mikvah, along with the City Hall's continuous encouragement that citizens call the police on each other if they thought no gathering rule was being violated. Your office then took the position that the Mikvah was not an essential service and supported by silence. Excuse me, I'm trying to get through the full question here. Okay, so my question is twofold. First, in knowing the demographic citizens of Côte Saint-Luc, why did your council not proactively work with Santé Québec to ensure that the Mikvah was approved as an essential service? Given the amount of attention that IGA and the dollar store are getting, I'm confused as to why the Mikvah wasn't considered.
Okay, you can read the second question too, because I think it's related.
Okay, my second question is, considering you were well aware of the closure, that any member of the community were now in need of the service, and in consideration that the Mikvahs across Montreal opened shortly after this with the full approval of Santé Québec, why did the city not move immediately to assist the religious community that you present?
Right. Well, first of all, the city had nothing to do with the closing of the Mikvah. We did not participate in any way. I know public security was there on that day, but they had nothing to do with it. It was the police that shut it down. It's not under the jurisdiction of the city. There's a posting today from the Montreal Board of Rabbis because there has been a lot of discussion on Facebook regarding this issue. And the Montreal Board of Rabbis writes quite clearly, the Montreal Board of Rabbis wishes to remind the community that regulations regarding our synagogues, mikvahs, and other religious institutions emanate not from any municipal authority, but from the Quebec provincial government. The purpose of these regulations is to protect the health and welfare of all Quebecers and should carefully and consistently be adhered to in the spirit of the Jewish value of human life. So I know there's a big concern about the reopening of the Mikvah. I've been very active on that file for the last many weeks. I've been in contact with Dr. Kaiser from the Health Authority, asking for the opening of the Mikvah and getting, we're looking into it. Things are going to open up slowly. And everything that we're doing, including this bylaw tonight, is in order to ensure that we're able to open things up in a careful and proper way. So like everything else that we're opening, we're going to get the Mikvah opened. I was on a meeting today with, first of all, Commander Station 9, and I asked him. He said, well, it's not under his jurisdiction, it's above him. So then I was on a meeting with Minister Rouleau, which was a conference that we have every Monday. And on that conference call are all the members of the National Assembly, including David Birnbaum, and all the mayors, like for Montreal, and all the mayors for the island of Montreal. And I asked the question to at that meeting, to when is the Mikvah going to be open? We're opening up swimming pools. When is the Mikvah going to be open? And the representative on that call from Santé Publique said that they will email me shortly with good news. So it looks like the Mikvah will be opening up shortly. But I just wanted to clarify the fact that during my entire career as a city councilor, as a mayor, I have been a very strong supporter of religious values. I support all minority rights and freedom of expression, freedom of religion. And was a supporter of the opening of Or Chaim, of Beth Chabad. I was one of the councilors that was fighting for every one of the locations that they wish to open with. And I've always been there fighting for fundamental religious rights, whether it's opposing the Charter of Values or the current secular laws. So I've done that with the former mayor, Anthony Housefather, and a member of parliament, and I will continue to stand up for all religious values, always taking into account what exactly the Montreal Board of Rabbis said, that our first concern is the health and safety of all. So the Mikvah should be opening soon, and I will continue to pursue the matter to ensure that it's open as safely as all of our other facilities that are getting the green light on the timeliest basis that we can. But remember, It's only that I can ask for it and push for it. It's not like I can open up the swimming pool in my municipality. That I can do. This I can't. I can only lobby, and I will continue to lobby for it because I believe now is the right time. The next question, Maître Provost.
Yes, the next question is from Mickey Harar. We were happy that the tents were not allowed for Shavuot as we are witnessing multiple gatherings on our streets on Shabbat and other holidays. During these gatherings, social distancing is not being followed and masks are not being worn. We think it is important for the police to visit our street, talk to the residents, and remind them that the rules are still in place for everyone's safety. There are two questions. I'm going to read the first one. Are you willing to take a stand and get police to break up these gatherings that occur indoors and outdoors? They followed your lead before Passover and were active during their patrols. When the mayor of Saint-Anne-de-Bellevue made a statement a couple of weeks ago, they also established presence to ensure that the rules were being followed. So that's the first question.
We make statements of what we feel is right. We don't control the police. It's the same sort of question about the mikvah. We don't control the police about taking down tents or moving up tents. All we can do is make statements. In my personal opinion, I think that it's safe for people to socially distance and pray under a tent. It's not for me to decide. I know the individuals wanted to have tents at their homes. I thought that was okay. But if they're going to interpret the religious institution shouldn't have tents because they're considered a lieu de culte, that is their interpretation once again. And the reasoning I received today on my call with Minister Hulot, because the question was asked by another mayor, and the response was that the rule still is 10-person, 3 families, even though it's not clear in the law, and they may be amending it to make the clarification. But what is the rule is 3 families have been getting together, not more than 10 people. But the police, despite that rule, which keeps on being reinforced by Santé Publique, seem not to be enforcing 10 people gathering, whether they might be from 3 families or not. We certainly want the health and safety of our residents. And once again, we believe that individuals should be able to pray and they should be able to do it in a safe way. So as long as they maintain social distance and follow the regulations that are imposed by the province, then that's fine with me. If the police enforce it based on the directives that they get, we have to accept that because we live in a free and democratic society with 3 levels of government. This is provincial jurisdiction sending directives to a police force who does the best that they can to keep the peace and safety of our society and the health of our society with the best intentions. So I'm not going to intervene and tell the police how to do their business. I will respect them. They are an enforcer, and I'm not their boss. I'm just the mayor of a little town. You have to realize the police are an agglomeration service. They're an agglomeration service from the island of Montreal, and these directives are coming from the province. So when they refer to the mayor, they're probably referring to Valerie Plante, not me. I'm certainly not their boss. But we want them. I think, generally our police are very kind and good to us in Côte Saint-Luc overall. And they speak to us and they communicate with us. They don't give out fines so quickly. So we have a good relationship and we want to keep that. There was a second question or anything else, Maître Provost?
Yeah, just the second part to the question. The resident wanted to know if the city was aware that there were some large party tents that were not taken down on Wavell, Smart, and West Luke in 2 adjoining yards. The tents were put together side by side and formed a massive tent. So I think the resident just wanted to bring this in.
We're not aware, nor would we have played any part in leaving them up or taking them down. That was, once again, from another level of government and enforced by the police with no involvement from the city. The next question, Maître Provost.
Yeah, so the next question is from Stephen White. With the province announcing that recreational sports gradually opening across the province starting May 20th, Minister Richard Massy, the strategic medical advisor to the public health branch, said that the next wave of activities to get a green light to open will be sports, leisure, and outdoor activities. Once the province allows it, will the city of Côte Saint-Luc allow for outdoor leagues to use the 3 baseball parks that we have at our disposal at Trudeau Park.
Our general philosophy of this council appears that, the health and safety of our residents is the number one concern, and that's why we're doing what is the most important: hand washing and suggesting wearing masks and enforcing it in certain locations, and physical distancing. Now, if the health authority comes up with a way to do anything safely, we're going to try to do it even better. So if we're going to be allowed to open up a certain facility and they're giving us the green light, we're going to look at every precaution we can do to make that activity safe, whether it's more hand sanitizing dispensers or easier ability for markers of where to stand or where to sit when you enter our pool, on the grass or in the pool, where to be, how to be apart. We're going to do it better, but we're going to try to do it. If the health department says it's safe and we can do it in a way where we don't cause increased transmissions, we're going to try to do whatever we can. I'm not sure if sports will be allowed and how, but it would be interesting to hear from the Santé Publique of how that could happen. Councillor Kajewski wants to add?
Yes, just quickly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just to the question that Steve White asked, it's very easy for the province to say, go open team sports, go open your pool. It's a lot more complicated, obviously, on the ground to do that. Just a small example, and I did speak with Steve last week about this. When it comes to softball, I happen to be a softball player. It's very easy to say, let's go play softball. But when it comes to areas in softball that will be an issue, let's say the dugout is a certain size. If we want to play softball, just one point off the top of my head, we'll have to expand the size of the dugout. That'll require a huge retrofit to our baseball field. So that's just one example of what it'll take to actually in real life implement what the province says go and do.
So far, the recommendations that they've given us seem to be, for the most part, manageable, and we're coming up with ways to make them work and make them even safer than the province is suggesting. But who knows? I don't know if they're going to allow team sports this summer. We'll see. Right now we have tennis and golf and swimming. So who knows what's next? Maître Prévost.
Yes, thank you. This is the final question that I have that was submitted. This question is from Jeff Joseph. The residents wanted more information on the mandatory usage of face coverings in commercial and municipal establishments. The resident mentions that it was suggested that the bylaw have an exemption for those with asthma and other related issues, or individuals with sensory processing issues, that be exempt from wearing the face covering. The resident mentions that the draft bylaw did not provide for that exception. Will it be provided in the bylaw?
Well, Maître Prévost, I think you're the best one to answer that question. Would you like to answer that question?
I will sure answer that question. So yes, we will be providing an amendment to the draft bylaw that we submitted last week to include an exception for these types of situations for residents with asthma or any respiratory conditions as such. And we are going to be modifying the face covering in commercial establishments and also in municipal establishments to include that exception.
Thank you, Maître Prévost. Are there any other questions for me, Darrell Levine, Communications Director? I don't see others. Am I missing any? Send me a chat note that no. I got a no from no one. There's nothing else. I want everybody to have a chance to ask questions who's watching this. Okay, so if not, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the bylaw, moving of the bylaw. Councillor Burku.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. So I'm going to present the bylaw and also give an explanation. So I'm in the bylaw 2557, instituting temporary safety measures related to the COVID-19 virus on the territory of Côte Saint-Luc. I am requested here to mention the differences between the tabled draft bylaw 2557, which was tabled last week, and the final version of the bylaw being adopted at tonight's meeting, namely the addition of an exception for the mandatory wearing of face coverings in commercial establishments and municipal buildings for health issues such as, but not limited to, respiratory difficulties, cognitive difficulties, and difficulties in hearing. Therefore, be it resolved that bylaw 2557, entitled Bylaw Instituting the Temporary Safety Measures Related to the COVID-19 Virus on the Territory of the City of Côte Saint-Luc, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Berkeley, seconded by Councillor Sabag. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to, in fact, I was asked to highlight the differences between the tabled bylaw and the bylaw that we are adopting tonight. So I will go through the major differences, and I just want to mention also that a notice of motion for the present bylaw was given on May 25th, and that the previous bylaws were, posted on our website, the draft bylaws. And now I'm going to go through the major differences. And the first one is in the mandatory signage for condominium complexes and apartment buildings. We originally had requested that the condominium complexes and owners of apartment buildings place at all entrances of their respective buildings the sign entitled Information au propriétaire. Okay, just a moment, please. I see now. Give me a second. I'm in the, I had so many versions open. I'm in the wrong one. I apologize. I'm going to go to the final version. Okay, so now Section 2.2, mandatory hand washing mechanism in condominium complexes and apartment buildings. This is mandatory now. It shall be mandatory for all condominium complexes and apartment buildings to install a hand washing mechanism at every entrance of their respective buildings and inside every elevator or outside every elevator door of their respective buildings. Basically, what we're saying is we want to have it in the elevator, somehow either connected in the elevator or to the floor outside of the door of the elevator. The obligation contemplated in this paragraph must be fulfilled within 1 month of the coming into force of the present bylaw. So that would be July 1st, 2020. The other next article is 2.3, mandatory face coverings in commercial establishments. The owner of a commercial establishment and or his employees shall not allow a customer into his establishment if the said customer is not wearing a face covering. The face covering must be worn inside the establishments at all times, unless it is reasonably required to temporarily remove the face covering for services provided by the establishment. Now, here's the difference between tonight's bylaw and what we had presented last week. A customer may exceptionally be exempt from wearing a face covering in a commercial establishment if the face covering inhibits the customer's ability to breathe in any way or for health reasons such as, but not limited to, asthma, cognitive disabilities, or difficulties in hearing. So those persons would be allowed to remove their face covering or not wear one when they were being allowed into the commercial establishment. The next section deals with the security and supervision measures. It shall be mandatory for the owner or manager of a commercial establishment to implement a program which will be introduced in the commercial establishment, and the obligation provided for this must be fulfilled within 2 weeks, so that our merchants, our large merchants and small merchants would have 2 weeks in order to implement the program, which would require people to wear masks once they came in, and also to have a program for their employees as well. The next section is diligence of owners and managers of commercial establishments. So that is unchanged. The section where there was a change was face coverings in municipal buildings. Again, the exception for people who have health reasons, but not limited to asthma, cognitive disabilities, or difficulties in hearing. Those people will be exempted if they have such difficulties. And those are basically the major features. So this bylaw, as we all know, requires individuals who are entering municipal buildings to wear a face covering at all times inside the municipal buildings. It also requires store owners or managers not to allow customers to enter the building, to enter the commercial establishment without wearing a face mask, and also requires apartment buildings and condo associations to make available hand sanitizers at the entrance of their buildings and inside or outside the elevator, and to place at all the entrances a government poster which gives the information to the residents as to what are the protocols with regard to hygiene, hand hygiene, and also with regard to recommended face coverings. So all these things are in the bylaw. It's basically clear, I think, at this point. And we have consulted with doctors, we've consulted with outside jurisdictions, other places where this type of requirement is being implemented. And I feel that it is a reasonable request that we're making on our residents and on our merchants and our condo buildings. And it should help in preventing the spread of the virus. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'd just like to say, as I said in my robocall yesterday, that the countries that our bylaw is based on what works in other countries who do this. If we look at Israel, who has a similar population in size to Quebec, while we have 50,000 recorded cases and 4,400 deaths, Israel's is like 17,000 cases and 6.5% as many deaths as we have. So they're doing a lot better, and it's basically by the enforcement of masks. They had a little bit of a surge this weekend, and Netanyahu get on the radio and television and said, you know, he's going to just have to enforce it even further because he knows that it works. He doesn't want to have to lock people down, but he wants the economy to open. He wants the economy to stay open, and that's what we want. We want it to work in Côte Saint-Luc, and we hope it spreads throughout the province and Canada. Similarly, I mean, Japan is 16 times the size of us and has similar statistics to Israel, which shows how diligent their population is. They have such a large population, and yet their numbers are so much less than us. So we know that wearing masks really works, and hopefully our population will take that advice. The doctors that spoke to us today said that, you know, it was very interesting. They said you could need around, let's just give a number. You need 1,000 particles of this virus to get the virus. So what does that mean? You could be walking by somebody who's singing really loudly, or like being at a choir practice in a room and they're singing really loudly and a lot of spew is coming out, and you can infect a lot of people. Or you could be too close to someone who's also like doing exercise, like or really talking loudly towards you, and you can get a lot of virus. Or you could be in your own office for 4 hours with a lot of particles in the air, and slowly over time, just over time, because it's in the air and there's 4 other people in your workspace, you just collect that virus, and after 3-4 hours, you have enough to get the virus. So wearing a mask, particularly indoors where there's no ventilation for those particles to just fly away, is going to protect you from getting the virus and from passing it on, most importantly, to our vulnerable population. And we know we have 1/3 of our population who is in that very vulnerable age where they have, if they get the virus, you know, chance of surviving it is there's 10% mortality rate for 70 and over, and it gets worse as you get older. So we're doing it for everyone, and it's a good thing to protect you and protect others. So if there's no other comments, it's been moved and seconded. Mike Cohen has a comment, or you're voting in favor? All in favor? Or you have a comment? You're on mute. Mike, you're on mute. Do you want to talk?
I made the wrong click. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so just to remind anyone who's watching this webcast and who's watching it, is Wednesday night at 7:15, Councillor Torgman and I will host the first virtual town hall meeting formerly known as district meetings with Mayor Brownstein as the guest, and he'll elaborate more on the situation regarding COVID, and maybe we'll have an update on this bylaw 2 days later. As well, we'll have one of the owners of the Equinox building that will be speaking. And just on this topic, I have been doing my walkthroughs. When summer was here a few days ago, winter came back today, but during the summer last week, I was doing a walk once a day throughout my complete district, stopping, talking to people with social distancing. People were very enthusiastic about this new bylaw regarding the masks. And I think they needed that little extra push from us to know that we're encouraging them. The condo owners want to stamp this out. And let's hope that, the numbers continue to go down and that we make our contributions. So I encourage people to log on to the Côte Saint-Luc website the Wednesday night, and we'll have a good opportunity to talk about local issues, but as well an update on COVID, because as we know, every day there's a new story related to it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Councillor Bricu.
Yes, je voulais dire quelques mots en français. Je pense que c'est pertinent. Alors, je vais juste lire la résolution en français. Alors, je donne le présent avis et je mentionne les différences entre le projet de règlement 2557 et la version finale du règlement qui sera adopté ce soir, soit l'ajout d'une exception pour le port obligatoire de couvre-visage dans les établissements commerciaux et les immeubles municipaux pour des raisons de santé telles que, mais sans s'y limiter, les troubles respiratoires, les troubles cognitifs et les difficultés à entendre. Donc, il est résolu que le règlement 2557, intitulé Règlement instituant des mesures de sécurité temporaire en raison du virus COVID-19 sur le territoire de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, soit et par les présentes adoptées. Merci.
Merci. Et moi aussi, je vais dire en français qu'on fait ce règlement en regardant ce qui marche bien dans les autres pays, particulièrement Israël ou le Japon et des autres places où ils font des couvertures de visage. On veut faire une bonne réouverture avec la chance d'avoir pas beaucoup de transmission pour qu'on peut continuer d'avoir une bonne qualité de vie ici à Côte Saint-Luc et j'espère à Montréal, au Québec, parce que je pense que bientôt, on va avoir ces règlements partout dans les autres villes et certainement aussi partout au Québec. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. So now I need a mover for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Torgman. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.